C2. This story is about a young boy called James. Every day he rushes to the local Kmart to buy his favourite drink, C2. He loves the taste, and it makes him more intelligent at school because of its green tea content. And of course he loves the taste. One day, I think it was a Tuesday, he bought his C2 as usual and then went up to the apartment. He asked his father to open the drink and then sat down to play with his iPad. He watched a funny clip on YouTube while drinking his C2 and giggling at the funny clip. Then he stopped giggling and started to stare at his hand that was holding the iPad. His hand looked strange. It looked whiter than usual, and then it started to become invisible. James could see right through his hand onto the iPad underneath. Then his other hand started to do the same thing. He jumped up off the floor and ran into the bathroom. "Ah!" he cried as he saw his head disappear in front of his eyes. He looked in the large mirror in the bathroom and his clothes were still there, but he was completely invisible. He quickly took off his shirt and shorts and then stood and stared at the empty mirror. He walked closer and gave out a deep breath of hot air onto the glass, and it misted. James thought for a moment. "What should I do? Should I go to the hospital or police?" he said quietly. Then he knew exactly what to do. He waited for his sister to come home so that he could prank her. James didn't have to wait long, as his sister was now arriving home. The door to the apartment closed, and an evil smile came across his face as he walked silently into the bedroom. Jessica was doing her homework on the bedroom floor as he entered. "Ooh, ooh," he cried, but she took no notice. Then he blew her hair into her eyes, but she just brushed it away. He thought again and then had the best idea ever. James walked over to the bedroom door and then got down onto the floor like an animal. Then he called Jessica. She could not see him because he was invisible, and so she ran to the other room and fell over him and landed on the floor. Jessica's father had seen her fall and was angry at her for being clumsy. "I tripped," she said miserably. Then she started to cry. Her father shouted again, "Don't cry, just get up and don't be so silly," he shouted loudly in an uncaring voice. Jessica cried louder. "Stop crying, you're fine," shouted her father again. This time Jessica said, "But look, my tooth is on the floor." Her father and James walked over and looked. There was blood and a tooth laying there on the floor where she had fallen. James felt terrible. He was so sorry for what he had done. But how could he say sorry? He walked away feeling miserable and guilty. Then Jessica laughed and said, "Well, at least James wasn't here to see what happened, or he would never stop talking about it." Without thinking, James shouted, "Hey, I am here!" The room fell quiet as his father and Jessica were both looking around. James was in trouble now. He had made his sister fall down and lose a tooth and had not apologized for what he'd done. He walked into the middle of the room and said, "I became invisible after drinking the C2. It was me who made you fall down, Jessica. I'm sorry." After a few hours, James became visible again and had to stand in the corner until bedtime. No one knows why the C2 made him invisible, and since that day, he has never become invisible again. Yet. The end. Thanks for listening. See you next time.